Hey, production team. Just trying this. This is the grief sermon for the first Sunday of November. Just going to get started here. Make sure everything's adjusted. Okay. Thanks. What he was and what we are, the day of judgment will declare. Strong words. Or this, these are both family grave markers. This actually, I'm named after this person, Peter Campbell. He and his wife, Catherine McNaughton, came to Canada in 1825. On his grave, it says, along with dates and places, "Remember, friend, as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you must be. Remember, friend, that you must die." Well, that's a heavy start. More stern words, more frank talk. People that knew life and death, that had lived in poverty in Killin, Scotland, and found their way over to Canada. Complicated political, economic forces that moved people around the planet in that era. The complexity of coming and carving farms out of land that they were told belonged to them, but in fact, of course, belonged to indigenous folks for thousands of years before them. Here we are. Here we are, and I've come to this place because it's so, I find this so inspiring to be able to take a few minutes in a worship service and reflect on grief and death from a graveside, from a graveyard, a cemetery. My parents are buried about 100 yards that way. In fact, there's a spot for me over there as well. This place, these places, and I know as I bring you to this one, I trust it's evoking others, whether in Ottawa at Beechwood or all the places we've lived and perhaps our families of origin have resided and been laid to rest. Grief is a reality, and it's a reality in this place. And I know today we are speaking about grief. Part of me was just kept thinking as I anticipated today, the idea of all the funerals that we've missed out on. Whether we've done the Zoom funeral or not, we've missed out on that culture of funerals the way we like them, the way we are used to experiencing them. And if that applies to the grief attached to mortality, to death, so much more to all the other griefs that are part of our society in these days, that are always, the complexity of grief is always there in so many facets. But in this time, the job losses, just the lack of mobility or opportunity for young people. I'm struck by our ability, and I know we are naming griefs today during our time together, and name them all. And I mean, please do name them all in your heart, and let them echo with the living and dying of our lives, the fragility of our days, the fact that people came and forged a life, for whatever circumstance, in another age, and then passed away, died. And as I look around here and think of my ancestors. I'm aware of a communion of saints that bear, that help me bear the grief that I feel in this world. So part of me comes to a graveyard, a cemetery, for hope. We've got a culture here that lays people to rest and commits people to the earth and commends people to God's Spirit. And I'm particularly aware these days that we need to have ways of compelling or inviting people to live out their grief and have their griefs honored and enable their tears, their reflections, their emotions, but also find our way forward. And I come to the gospel for the day, that incredible passage that has been spoken at countless funerals, has been at countless gravesides. The words from the Gospel of John, where Jesus is speaking words of hope and peace, and in my Father's house are many rooms, and they are such hope-tinged words, and I have deployed them in funerals down through the years. And sometimes what I need to remember this day is they are words in the midst of a crisis. They are spoken in the face of catastrophe. Upper room, menace all around. Jesus and his friends, all of them, but Judas, assessing risk, assessing danger. And of course, as we know, having read the story, Jesus doesn't have long to live. He will be arrested and killed within 24 hours. In the midst of that moment, Jesus speaks words of strength, words that to my mind, I think maybe I have spoken those words about my Father's house and peace I leave with you a little too easily. Maybe I need to take a lesson from my ancestors. These remember, friend, as you pass by, hear the declarative quality of those words. There are bad things happening all around you, and you need to be strong. You need to know that this isn't the whole story. There's a theological language, eschaton. There's an end point ahead of us. There's a future calling people of faith. There's something that we embody that leans us into the future, that this isn't the whole story. I need to grieve, and I also need to be challenged by Jesus in the swirl of chaos and complex griefs swirling around him. That's where I want to find myself right now. I want to place myself there and let the gospel demand something of me. Demand something of me as I attend to this moment, our relationships, our ministries, our ministry together. I want to be drawn into that future. And Jesus does it for me. Part of me needs to take it seriously. I don't want it to be the sort of pie in the sky, things will be good someday, the next world, the next life. I reject that form of religious, that form of eschatology, that form of wishful thinking. But it creeps in. It creeps into, we'll do that thing properly once the pandemic's over. once we have a vaccine. And you realize, wait a second, that's sort of like that'll happen, I trust, but that sort of pushing things into the future, deploying that future becomes a distraction. I think it undermines my ability to stand firm in this moment as a person of faith. I need to cultivate that inner voice. It's a very 20th or 21st century quality. I'm not sure if Jesus would have spoken that way. But I need to cultivate that quality of experiencing God in this moment. Of the Christ giving his friends initially in the story, the tools for them to sort out the crisis that was already happening and was about to intensify in their life. And think about what future calling is speaking to this moment for you, for us, for our world. Experiencing God, experiencing the quality of God's presence is at the core of this moment. This moment isn't about figuring out strategies or strategic thinking. I wish it was, because I sort of feel like I'd love to be in on that conversation, but instead I'm being invited to know that in the whirlwind of this moment, there's a place for me. There's room in the household of faith. In my life, in my gifts, my service, and in my death. We will do right by one another in the face of grief and loss. And we have so much to learn. And I'm so aware that there's so many in our church communities who are so gifted at that quality of creating conversations around these griefs. Pivotal right now to make room for that. To let that breathe. But also to hear the sort of stern voice of Jesus. For me in this old cemetery, to know that I'm being invited to move forward. And not wait for things to change out in the world. Not wait for something to be right somewhere else. Not wait for the right time. To be faithful this day, this night, in the upper room that is our life right now, the place where we have closed the door and have, got our masks. That in those places, we have work to do. We are being invited to imagine a abundant world, an eschaton full of possibilities that are inbreaking into this moment. Thank you for letting me reflect on these things with you this day. May we all find ways of creating the space for the grief and then leading each other forward. Thank you for letting me do this from this place. It's a gift to be able to share from here on a Sunday morning. May God bless us as we let all of this find its way into our souls and find ourselves serving God in a new way, in a new day. Amen.